Hello, I'm Julie with Paisleys and Polka Dots, and in this video I'm going to show you how to do a crackle paint effect on our wood here. So I am just going to jump right in and get started. The crackle paint, if you've never done it before, it's super easy to do. It's a super easy technique, and the one thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you have a dark base color. Today I'm going to be using this Americana paint. It's called Sable Brown, and this is going to be my dark base. You can use black paint if you want. It gives a really nice look. The crackle paint, it kind of gives it that chippy paint look, distressed look, sort of like a wood crackle. So that's what we're trying to achieve. So the undercolor has to be dark. So we're going to do Sable Brown because I don't want it to be so stark and so harsh of a contrast. So I'm going to use brown. And then we're going to go over the top with white paint. We're going to paint the base coat first, and in between we're going to put on this Crackle Medium. It's by Folk Art, and it comes clear. It's in this clear bottle, and then you're going to paint that on and let it dry, and then you're going to paint the white over the top, and as it dries it's going to crackle for us. So I'm just going to jump right in and get started. Let's put some paint on my palette here. And when I paint, I like to paint the sides of my wood first. I'm going to do the base first, actually. So I like to paint around my edges first. And the nice thing with crackle painting is you don't have to be too precise with it because you already want a distressed look. So if your painting's not too perfect, well, then you don't really care, right? Because it's supposed to look old and distressed and like you just slapped a bunch of paint on. So but I still like to go around all of my edges first, clean up anything that gets on the front edge here, like any of those globs of paint there. I always paint kind of sideways like this. I'm using about a 1-inch brush. You can use foam brushes if that's what you feel comfortable using. I don't particularly like foam brushes. They're just not my thing. But if that's what you like using, by all means, they work as well. Okay, I've gone all the way around the outside edge here, and because we're going to go over it with the crackle paint and then we're going to go over it with white, the coverage, one coat is sufficient for this because we don't really need too much coverage. So I'm just going to do the one coat. The one thing that we don't want to do is this bunny is going to fit into these little slots here. So we don't want to get paint in the slot, otherwise it may not fit. If you do find that you get some paint in there, just kind of try and take it out like that. Also, if it doesn't fit, then you can get a nail file, like, let me see, like these. This is your typical little nail file, and you can sand the slot of this with your nail file, and it will then fit. Sometimes even when you're painting, or the wood will swell depending upon temperature changes. So sometimes, you know, if you find your piece doesn't fit, then you can always sand it with that nail file. Okay, so like I said, I'm going around here, going around the slot here. Okay, and try to make nice long strokes. You don't want a bunch of, but like I said, with this particular technique, you don't really care what the, you know, how you slap on the wood or on the paint, because it's just going to be distressed looking anyway. Okay, and I'm just going to go around the edges here real quickly. Okay, so now that I've gone all the way around my edges, I'm going to come back in and I'm going to try to do some longer, nice long strokes to paint in the front side of the wood. If you get any, I got a little dry speck of paint in there. I'm going to try to get it out. Okay, long strokes like this. Again, with this technique, it doesn't matter that much, but typically when I paint, I do like to make nice long strokes. Now with the crackle paint, it depends on which direction you put your paint. So I'm going up and down, and if I was to go sideways this way, then that's the way my paint's going to crack. Especially when we put on the crackle. I don't know if it matters so much with the undercoat or the base coat, but definitely when you put on your crackle and then you put on the top coat, you want to go in the direction that you want your crackle effect to take place. And on this piece, again, we don't want to paint these little portions right here that are going to go into your base piece, because again, it might change the thickness of the wood and not fit. Okay, so we kind of want to stay away from that right there as much as we can. Okay, so I am pretty much done with my base coat. Now we're going to want to let this base coat fully dry before we go and we put our crackle paint on, or the crackle medium. So that's what's going to come next. So I'm going to set this aside and let it dry, and then I'll come back and we'll start getting our crackle paint on. Okay, so I am back and the pieces here are all dry. I painted this little round circle piece because I want to show you what happens when you paint over the crackle paint. And I'm just going to show you something, so we'll just set that aside there. So this is the Crackle Medium. It's by Folk Art. I think there's probably other brands on the market as well. I bought this one from Hobby Lobby. I think you can buy it online as well. But this is the brand that I found, so this is what we're using. And it's a Crackle Medium. It's clear. It goes on clear. And I have found, I'm going to squirt some on my palette here, and I'll go around the sides again first. The thicker you put this on, the heavier your cracks are going to be. So if you put it on really light, then you get this really light soft crackle effect. And if you put it on super heavy, then you get these deep cracks. So it's kind of a little bit of trial and error in what you like and the style you want. Also, I think I might have already said, it's depending upon which way you paint the crackle on is the direction that the crackle is going to go once you paint on that top coat. So I'm just going to paint this on. Again, I'm going to try not to get it in these little slots here, because we don't want to get it in there. So I'm going to try and do the best I can with staying away from that. Okay, so right now I'm going sideways. So if I want that crackle to go sideways, then I want to keep it that way. But I want my crackle to go up and down. So I'm going to take my brush and just kind of go over the top and kind of give it long side strokes, because that's the way I want my crackle to go. Okay, so I'm going to set this one aside. I'm going to do this one. And I think I'm going to paint this one just so you guys can see the different effect that it takes. And we'll kind of do a little trial and error right here. This is going to be a little sample piece. Okay, so I'm going to do it up and down here. And then the other half will go sideways. And then we'll see how it comes out. So you can see the different effects. And I am putting it on a little bit heavier in a few little spots so that you can see how that works as well. Okay, so I'm going to set this one aside. Now I'm going to go around the sides of my bunny again. Because even though there's not much, too much to the side, there's not too much wood on the side, you still want it to be able to crackle as well. So you're going to want to put the Crackle Medium on the sides too. Okay, we got the sides all done. Now let's do the top. And I do have my brush loaded up with quite a bit of the Crackle Medium. I'm just kind of brushing it on in long strokes. I'm going up and down because I want my crackle to go up and down. Or if I do to go sideways, then I straighten it out once I get the crackle or the medium all over the wood. And then I'll even it out. If I get any drips going down my side of the bunny, then I'll try to clean those up too. Try to stay away from the bottom little pegs down here. But you do want to go down far enough that it's going to go into the slot, or cover where it's going to go into the slot. You don't want any bare wood showing there. Okay, so I'm pretty much got it all covered with the Crackle Medium. Maybe you can see it, maybe you can't on the video. It's kind of a shiny, real shiny coat. So it says to let this dry for about an hour. So as soon as it's all dry, then once again I'll come back and then we're going to do the top coat. Okay, we are back once again, and now we are going to put on our top coat. This is we're just going to paint it with white. I already have some poured out on my palette here, and watch the magic happen right now. So I think I'm going to show you on this piece first what happens, because this step, one thing that is very important is once you put it on, once you put your paint on, you don't want to go back over it. Okay, so longer strokes are probably better, easier coverage that way. This was the piece I painted one direction and then went another direction, so I'm going to do the same thing. I really can't tell quite which way I went in each direction, so this is going to be trial and error here. But I'm going to go ahead and put, I kind of load up my brush maybe a little bit heavier for the top coat, or the when I'm painting the top. Now, not the sides of the bunny, because I don't want to get paint too much just everywhere. So, but I do want a little bit more paint for the top. So I'm going to brush this way, and I'm not going to go over the top. And you can already see it starting to crackle. You have to kind of play with it, because if you work at it quick enough, then it's not going to matter if you go over the top. But see how this is already drying in here? Now, if I go over the top of this, and see how it's going to pull it up? It's pulling it up a little bit. So that's what's going to happen. So if you like that look, then you can go with it. It's all in how what look you're trying to achieve. So I went sideways here. Now this side I'm going to go up and down. Like so. Okay, now you can go sideways to get to the edge, and then really quickly. Okay, so now that is going to start to crack. And you can see where I put it heavier right here and right here, so it takes a little bit longer to crack. So those are probably going to be heavier cracks. So see how this is a little bit more even and your cracking is even here, where I've kind of gone over it in these little spots here. So it left a different distress look. So it's all in what you want your piece to look like. If you want this even cracking going on, or if you want this kind of heavier distress, because if I go over it right here, it's see how it's pulling it back up? And you don't want to go over it too much, because then you're going to lose that crackle effect. The paint will fill in at some point. It won't continue to crack. So see how my cracking's going this way on this part, and it's going this way. It's going horizontally on this part. Okay, so now we're going to start on the real piece. I just wanted to show you what happens if you stroke over it a couple times with your paint, and what happens with that. So I'm going to go around my edges, and I'm going to try not to get too much paint on the top of my piece. Now, if you're worried about getting too much paint on the top of your piece, you can always turn it over, and you can work from the back side. So that way, if you get any paint on it, you can just brush it off, and you're not going over the top part of your wood. You're not, so that you're going to pull it back up when you go over it with the paint. Okay, so I'm going to go around the edges real quick here. See how it's already crackled on this side? Now I want to be very careful when I go over the top of that. Clean this up a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to go over the top. Sometimes I don't get enough paint on there, so I want to kind of go over the top just a little bit, just because I want a little bit better coverage. So sometimes I will have to go over the top, or when you meet up your strokes. So I'm meeting up these strokes up to the top strokes. So you are going to have to go over the top a little bit, where I'm going to have to meet up here, but you just lightly go over it. And if you're not too rough on it, see how you pulled it up right there? Okay, now all that's going to crack. Now I had less paint on this section right here, and I had a little bit, my paint was a little bit heavier on this part right here. So see how much heavier the cracks are right there versus how light these cracks are down here. This was less paint, less white paint. Okay, so I'm going to set that one aside, and then I'm going to start painting around the bunny. I think I'll turn it over and go from the back side again. I kind of like that way, so that I don't get that, or you can do this too. You can kind of go a little bit each direction, but not too much, because we don't want to pull up the paint. Once it starts to dry, that's when it starts to crack, and that's when you don't want to go over it again. Or if you do, like I said, it just gives it a different look. After I get all done, I am going to take some sandpaper to the edges anyway. So it's not going to matter if I have a little bit of paint, a little bit excess paint on the edges, because I'm going to sand those. Okay, I have gone all the way around the bunny, and see how it has now started to crack all the way around the sides of the bunny. Okay, so now I want to be careful that I'm not gobbing paint back onto the side and having to clean it up. Okay, so I'm going to start putting it in the front. I kind of have a lot of paint loaded onto my brush. And where I go over the top, this is where I kind of use just a light hand so I'm not pulling it back up. It kind of all evens out in the end anyway. It's kind of just part of the look. If you have a bad spot, you know, wood weathers differently in different spots. It's not going to weather perfectly. So it's all just part of the look that you get in the end. So I wouldn't be too particular about it. Once you finish it, it all kind of blends together and it looks really nice. And you can see my piece is already starting to crack. Looks really cool, huh? I think I'm going to need a little bit more paint here. I had a few little dabs of paint, little spots of paint when I painted the bottom pieces that got on here. So, but it's just going to kind of add to my look. Okay, I'm almost done. Okay, so there we have it. Okay, so I am going to let this dry, and so see how, because I used the brown, it's not as harsh as if I was to use black. So you can see the brown coming through. It just kind of looks antiqued rather than have this really stark black look underneath. If I was putting probably a darker cross stitch piece or something on it, or maybe something that I did with black cross stitch, Aida cloth, or you know, the black Monaco or something, then yeah, I would absolutely like black. But because it's a spring bunny and I'm probably going to put a lighter piece on it, I've decided that I wanted to go with the lighter brown. So look at the way this one's coming out. And like I said, see, so this is where I kind of gone over the top. And this is where I did kind of cover it more and it didn't crackle. So it dried too much. So this is where I went over the top. And you know, you want to be careful of that too, that you don't cover up your crackle too much. So I hope you enjoyed the different techniques that we showed here. I'm going to let this dry, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to sand it, and then you can see how that looks, okay? Okay, my bunny is now dry and I am ready to sand him. I'm just going to sand the edges. You can sand as much or as little as you want, of course, depending upon how distressed you want it. Is depending upon how much you're going to sand it. So I use a 150 grit sandpaper. It's just a little piece that I folded up, and I think I'm going to start on this piece here that we were working on. And I don't just sand the edge like this. I really get in there and just rub on the whole entire piece, kind of going around it. And I am rubbing on the top a little bit as well. And you see how that just makes the stain from behind, or the brown paint from the underneath come through. You can see it on the edges. So, and if you want heavier distressing in the middle, you can absolutely sand in the middle. If you want heavier distressing in the middle, you might need to go up a bit in your, the higher you go, the finer it is. So you'd have to go down in your grit on your sandpaper. Okay, so real easy, just go around the edge. You do want to sand going in the same direction though. You don't want to sand this way and then sand this way. I want to keep all my sanding. Typically I sand with the direction of my paint strokes. So if my paint strokes are going up and down, I'll kind of sand my bunny up and down. Okay, so you can kind of see how the edges, like some of the brown coming through here. Just adds a little bit of extra distressing along the edge. I'm going to go all the way around the bunny here. And see, I'm not really being too particular. I'm not just going like, you know, like trying to get in the, I mean, I go over the whole thing. Kind of get aggressive with it. Go around the bunny tail. You can get it here and there. If you've missed places, it's okay too. It's a little heavier in some places than others. Just like that, okay? Okay, so that's all there is to it. So here's what the finished bunny looks like. And pretty easy technique, right? So since I had everything still kind of out on my table, I thought I would show you how I actually finished him. So I just took some ribbon, and this ribbon is wired. So I tend to like wired ribbon because then I took two pieces and put them together and just kind of tied it around his neck. But I do like wired ribbon because when, you know, I can shape it when I tie the bow. Or if you have those wonderful bow making tools, they also work if you have a different kind of type of material for your bow. You don't have a wired bow, but I have this wired ribbon, so I thought I would use it. So I just tied a bow around the neck of the bunny. I'm going to shape my ends here. Pull it tight. And then get my ends to however I like them. I'll pull these two ribbons apart. Okay, I won't spend too much time on this, but just wanted to show you a little bit. So see how the wired ribbon, you can kind of shape it. I just wanted a soft, dainty ribbon. So I can now take these and trim these down. Cut them at an angle here. Okay, like so. Okay, and then I purchased some little spring flowers from Hobby Lobby, like these here. Kind of went a little overboard, don't you think, right? But just pretty spring colors, and I just keep bunches of them on hand. These ones I just got, so they still have them right now. While I'm making this video. So, and then I just cut little pieces off of them, like these little pieces. Okay, and then I just kind of, and I'm going to glue them in place later. I won't do it right now, but I just kind of stuck it in. I think I'm going to cut these down. Let me get my cutters here. Got these nice big, huge pair of wire cutters so that I don't have to use my good scissors. And these work fantastic for cutting things down. Okay, so then I'm just going to slide these little pieces of flowers into the bow. Kind of just stick them in here and there and get them the way I like them. And then I'll probably glue them in place once I have them, where I want them. But I just kind of stuck them all in. Like so. Stuck a few of these in. Okay. And I did, once I got it where I wanted it, I did chop off the little ends once I glued them in place. So this is all I did. I just kind of stuck these little sprigs in here, glued them in place, and the ribbon kind of hides them all. Like so. Maybe I'll stick this one back here. So I'll go back and pull them back out, and then I'll kind of put a little bit of glue on them and then glue them in place. Maybe I'll bring this one up a little bit. So I just kind of play with them till I have them just the way I want them, and then hot glue them. I can use hot glue, and he is ready for a little cross stitch piece in the center right here, a little round one. Okay, and then you just slip the base on like this. And that's all there is to it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, or you can leave me a comment in the box below. You can also email me at info@paisleysanpolkadots.com and reach out to us that way. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.